In their article, Leisure, Digital Games, and Learning, Perspectives for School Education, Aruda and Aruda explore the relationship between digital games, which they conclude are widely considered to be elements of leisure, and their potential for enhancing learning both inside and outside of the classroom. Their work is less concerned with generalizable conclusions or findings, and more with solidifying a foundation from which educators interested in these topics can explore them on their own. Ultimately, Aruda and Aruda call on educators to critically examine ways in which digital games affect learning and how teachers and institutions can better utilize and incorporate these new modalities into learning environments. The authors frame their analysis via 4 key pillars. First, they couch digital games in the context of leisure, providing a historical and cultural foundation. They make it clear that leisure presupposes work because it relates to play and personal choice. Further, they point out that time spent being productive versus unproductive, i.e. working versus not working, can define leisure. Thus, they argue that video games fit the model of leisure as they exhibit the features of play and being unproductive. With the second pillar of their analysis, Aruda and Aruda identify the recent shift of digital games from tools of play and leisure to that of cultural elements. They argue that as time youth spend with digital games increases, there may be a simultaneous decrease in the importance of school obligations. The third pillar of their analysis focuses on the historical presence of games and the contemporary place of digital games and technology in society. The authors argue that the dichotomy between the acceptance of and resistance to digital games, particularly in educational contexts, has much to do with people misunderstanding the many aspects of the medium and the perspective that digital games are simply a medium of leisure and entertainment. They also argue that resistance to digital games stems, in part, from their potential to disrupt social traditions and structures. This disruption can bleed into education, providing the impetus for resistance, ignorance, and even fear. The final pillar of their analysis focuses on the synthesis of leisure and learning in relation to digital games. They assert that digital games have evolved from simple leisurely play to oftentimes complex temporal and social investments. They explore how this investment relates to learning, suggesting that the complex structures of modern digital games and the cognitive development they encourage may offer viable, engaging, and valuable learning opportunities that traditional classrooms simply can't. Overall, Aruda and Aruda do an admirable job tying leisure, digital games, and learning together to create a research foundation for others. Their description of potential learning opportunities using a variety of game examples is both relevant and helpful as a jumping-off point for any teacher interested in exploring digital games and learning. Further, their assertion that the facets of digital games and the opportunities they can provide are widely misunderstood is bang on. Though the authors don't explicitly say so, it seems likely that more teachers will need to go hands-on and experiment with games themselves if they are to break down this barrier. While their analysis is largely valuable, it is also somewhat limited, making some inferences or arguments that are less salient in 2019 than they were 5 years ago when the article was written. Perhaps the greatest contemporary challenge to their argument is the meteoric rise of esports and streaming culture since 2014. Though they briefly touch on esports in the article, I doubt even they could have predicted its lofty ascension. This challenge is one of the key pillars of their work as it now muddies the waters between work and leisure, upsetting the place of games and leisure as they define it. Certainly, the notions of play and voluntary participation are less clear to a full-time streamer or aspiring esports athlete who must dedicate hours of time to these pursuits, thereby replacing leisure with work. Perhaps an update to this article, one that explores new literature of this emerging dichotomy further, would be beneficial. Despite these gaps, Aruda and Aruda ultimately succeed in providing teachers who are interested in exploring digital games and learning a solid foundation from which to base this exploration.